So I'm building a chatbot for an e-commerce website. And this video is comparing the traditional linear workflow where you have button responses and you guide the user, and comparing it to the newer agents that were introduced a couple weeks ago. And this is comparing them and saying which one's better. And the answer is currently it depends. So with the traditional linear workflow, we have your standard preset introduction or message. You have your buttons and then it guides the user through. But if we change it to the new agents, like you can do the same thing and preset a selected message, which is fine. It's just that it doesn't guide the user as obviously, I'll say. So you can type, like the user can type in whatever they want and it'll pick up what they register what they're saying. And if you have triggers in place and functions, it can still do the same thing. However, the success rate isn't as high as if it is a linear workflow, because you're giving the user instructions on what to do to get to their desired result. So, and while these agents are very, very smart, there's still a little bit of an overlap where there will be certain things it doesn't register. So for things like if you want to find your order, I'll go to the order section. This is the basic linear workflow from the template, but it literally guides the user, tells it what it needs to input to find out the information that it wants. Mistyped that. Yeah, it didn't work because... Anyway. Okay, now it's got my order from the test Shopify store that I made up. And then it's got one that's fulfilled. It's in its process. So you can view the order, all this stuff. While you can set up functions in the agent to do the same thing, and then have triggers like if they type in their email, it triggers to find the order or whatever. But if you want to do that and simultaneously add their email to a email marketing or whatever for the store, it just takes longer in the process, and you likely have to go to make or N8N and then build out a workflow through there, which is fine and all. That's easily like a good process to do. But I feel like for results, a linear pathway at the moment is still the way to go for certain things. But for things like products, I'll go to the products, find a product, and then I have my product section here. This is the default from the template as well, the product recommendation. And then this is like a workflow you build out. It asks, it captures the responses, then it gives information back, then it goes out to there. But I've got it linked to this one agent. Instead of this workflow, it's not coming through here. It's got this one product agent that I've built out, and find the perfect hat. And then I've given it instructions to say, what products are you interested in? If you want to return to the menu, type go back. So it's letting the user know that if you want to go back to that menu, this is what you type. Because otherwise, the user doesn't know how to get back there. You can set up triggers and paths and functions that will guide the user back there if certain things are said. Like if you type in if you get instructions that say, if the user types anything that's not to do with a product, send them back. And that works. But the user might type something that's kind of vague and then that the agent can't pick up on. So in those instances, it's good to have a clear instruction for the user to type. Because if not, they could kind of be stuck in a sort of limbo area. But anyway, I'll just test this out. Show me cowboy hats. Now, this is based on my friend's store who has a hat store. And he's got a Shopify store. I'm not grabbing the API or using a Streamline Connect. I've built out this knowledge base from myself. It's just scraping the website as a whole. I'll show you quickly actually. This is how I used a Python script to scrape the website, and it outputs the details of the products very clearly for the knowledge base to understand. And I have another video that I showed the Python script. If you want a tutorial on how to do that, just let me know in the comments. Okay, so we have, here are some cowboy hats. You can ask for more detail. Give me more detail on the Powder River. So while that's going, at the very start where I say type go back, yeah, here. Sometimes the agent won't produce this as the opening message when it goes to this agent. So you can reassure it to the agent that it should do that every time, but there's still that small percentage where it won't do that for some reason. It just, like, I've just found, like, make sure you type this at the start or whatever. Always open with this. But then there's that 1% of the time where it just doesn't, and it just says, hi, I'm your agent. Well, how can I help you? Which is fine and all, but I want this message to appear. And then if there's anything else you'd like to know, I'll say no. And then that message comes up again. That kind of brings me back to my point, comparing this agent with a traditional workflow, or the linear workflow, I should say. Like, but this works fine. Go back. Hopefully, I set it up in the trigger. There we go. It finally worked. So clicked over, go back. Welcome to the Hattery. How can I help you? Back to this support section. The agents are very good from accessing the knowledge base and outputting what the user would want. But it's just triggering it to do other things, and then it not recognizing certain language used by the user. And if the knowledge base isn't trained out properly, the success rate of it outputting the results isn't as high as this linear path. So as a business, you got to think of it from a business owner's perspective. Like, you have these two options of using a thinking human-like agent or like a linear workflow. And one of them has an 80% chance of finding the user a solution or an answer to their question. But the other one has like a 95% chance. And like, it's just kind of a no-brainer for them which one they would pick. Well, you can definitely tinker with the agent to get that percentage up higher. From, let's say, a basic standpoint, the linear workflow is good for a lot of things. The one thing I've definitely find the agent more useful for now is like a thing like a product database, where it's searching the product database. And then also giving clear instructions for the user. As I said before, this won't always pop up because the language model will just kind of do its own thing that the small percentage of times. So while I do like the agents for products, things like tickets as well, they're like, you can set up the agent to do the same thing. If you're talking to an agent and you say, I want to submit a ticket, and then you can set it up to do this kind of workflow within the agent. But again, the main problem is at the moment is the conversion success rate. So it's like a 80-90% chance that the agent will pick up the user's request, understand what it's saying, and then output it. But compared to a linear workflow where there's either like you're doing it right or you're doing it wrong, the conversion is just much higher currently. And there are a lot of tweaks around, and then the agents are good for multi-purpose. Like, you can fill out so many functions into an individual agent that I'm trying to go back to the product here. I'll just finish this ticket just to show you. So yeah, you collect the name. It's capturing all this information. And then you describe the issue. It describes the issue. My item's broken. And then I've set it up with Zendesk. So it will ticket created. Your ticket ID is that. And it sent a ticket through to Zendesk. So while you can set this up within an agent, as I was saying, if you're just typing a few things wrong or whatever, it might output it differently. And yeah, that's, I know I'm just repeating myself at this point, but that's the main thing I'm trying to say. Currently, these linear workflows still provide a higher percentage result rate. And that's what I've kind of seen with the testing. And then you look at on stores now, what agents people are using. A lot of them are still the linear workflows because because they've been around longer, but also they do provide a high accurate result. Now, in saying that, how quickly this space is developing, it probably won't be long until agents will just take over. And then you have human-like responses and everything else. But for e-commerce sites, it's a huge range of customers. So you got to think of, like, say if you're building this out for a client and the client's an e-commerce store owner, you got to think of that site's customers in mind as well when you're building things like this out. So yeah, anyway, I just kind of wanted to talk about the differences between the agents and a linear workflow. While they're both very good, and the agents, I reckon, will take over. And if you build them out correctly with paths and then getting the correct functions, you code in the right functions, they are still very good to work with. But for now, I feel like a linear workflow helps guide the customer to their desired result, which it's just kind of like an instruction. Like, you click this button if you want this, and you narrow it down. But with the agent, it can sometimes still misunderstand what the customer's saying. So yeah, anyway, that's about it. Thanks.